Hi, this is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and today we're going to do a really cute fun fold. I really love how this turned out, and I'm excited to share this with you. This is the front of the card, and before we go any further, I'll tell you, if you're going to mail this specific card, it's definitely going to require extra postage because it's a little bulky, but it's a beautiful card. If you're going to hand deliver it to someone, this is a really great card. So it's called the Twisted Easel. So it's an easel card with a little bit different aspect to it. So here's the front, and then when you open it, it goes like that. So it kind of twists, and I'm going to try to hold this up so you can see it at a different angle. Beautiful card for the recipient to display, and I'm sure they'll love it and they'll just think it's beautiful and they'll want to display it. So let's talk about how to make this beautiful card. First, I want to show you the stamp and die sets that you'll need for the project. The stamp set that we're going to be using is the Prized Peony, and that's where we're getting our sentiment. We're also going to be using this small peony right here, and those are the stamps that we're going to use. We're going to use another stamp, but most of our stamping is going to come from here. We're also going to be using the coordinating die set for this, the peony dies. We're going to be using these to make our 3D flowers. Let me show you the front of the card again. We have these 3D peonies on here, and I'll show you how to put those together, and we're going to be using dies to do that. We're also going to be using this larger of this decorative circle die from the Tasteful Labels die set. And we're also going to be using a stamp from the Celebrate Sunflowers, as well as coordinating dies. We're going to be using these leaf type things, and then we're also going to be using this to cut out a leaf that we're going to stamp. So a lot of different sets today. But that's what I wanted to get the look that I wanted. You could definitely substitute a different leaf. You wouldn't have to use this leaf. There are leaves in the Prized Peony, but they were just a little small, so I wanted something larger, and I was already going to be using this for this element here because I wanted that. So that's why I chose so many different sets, but I think that the end effect is worth doing. So hopefully you'll agree and you'll fall in love with these sets. So let's go to the card stock. Our card base, I'm using Early Espresso, and the card ends up being 5.5 by 5.5. So you're going to cut 11 inches by 5.5, and then we're going to do some scoring together on this. Then you're going to need another piece of Early Espresso that's 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 square. You're going to need a piece of basic white that's 3.5 by 3.5. Another piece of basic white that is 5 by 5. Then you're going to need, this is Blushing Bride that I'm using. And I have 3 of them. I was trying to make sure they're all the same size. 3 pieces that are 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 square. And then you're going to need 2 of the Designer Series paper, and I'm using this really pretty pink. This is from the Hand Pen Petals Designer Series paper, and one of them is 5 by 5. The other one is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 square, okay? And we're gonna do some cutting and some scoring all together, but those are what you need to start out with. We're also gonna be using these elegant faceted gems. We're going to use the more pearl looking one instead of the clear one. And then you're going to need a scrap of the gold metallic, a scrap of soft succulent, and a scrap of basic white. And I'll show you what we're going to do with those. So let's start with doing some scoring and some cutting. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and we're going to start with our card base. The first thing we want to do, always remember to put your cutting blade out of the way, or else you might accidentally use the cutting blade rather than the score blade. So you want to make sure to pull that out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do, we want to score this directly in half. So I'm going to score it at 5.5. And then on one of the squares, we want to do a diagonal cut. Or a diagonal score, not a cut. So we're going to put where we just scored, we want that to be in the center of our track. And we're going to put the top, so we're going from the fold line to the top. We want to make sure we get both of those centered in the track. And we're going to score that. And that's got our scoring done. That gives us our triangles and it gives us our center fold. Okay, so then let's work on our other pieces. The two small squares, we're just going to be stamping on this and then matting them. So there's no further thing that you need to do with that. So let's go to our basic white pieces. I guess there's just one piece. So one other thing with the designer series paper, the smaller of the two, you're not going to need to do anything with, so you can put that one aside as well. Okay, now the basic white is going to go on this inside. So we're going to have to do a diagonal cut, not a score. This time we're doing a cut. So we're just going to put one corner, we're doing a diagonal corners, and we're just going to put those inside the track. And I've said this on other videos, but I want to reiterate it in case you've not seen it. Put your blade somewhere on your cardstock. Don't try to go below it or above it and come down, because you could easily smash your corners. That popped out a little bit, but I think I got it. So we're just going to score those in two. Then we're going to do the same thing with our larger piece of designer series paper. We're just going to get the corners in our track. Just like that. Okay. Now, one of your Blushing Bride squares you don't need to do anything with. The other two, we need to repeat this process. So we're just going to do diagonal cuts. Get that lined up. So we've got one more. And then we're going to be done with our cutting and scoring, and we'll be able to start putting things together. Just trying to make sure I get that lined up in the track so that my diagonal cut is not crooked. Okay, there we go. So now I'm just going to move my trimmer. And we're ready to move ahead to the next step. So let's work with our die cut pieces. We're going to make two of the 3D peonies. So let me show you what you're going to need. You're going to need this, 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 and this. So there's 4 pieces. Oh, there's one more. And the little stamen. Okay, so each of these, you're going to cut 2 of them each out of basic white, okay? So it's going to look, you're going to have these pieces. So you're going to have 2 of each one, okay? And then you're going to cut 2 of the stamens out of the early espresso. And I'll show you how to put all this together. So I'm going to move these out of the way for now. And then the only other die on here that you're going to need this small peony. And we're going to be doing some stamping, and you're going to use that to cut it out, okay? So I'm going to move this out of the way. And we're going to go ahead and do some stamping. We'll get all of our stamping done and out of the way, and then we'll start building our peony. So I'm going to start with the leaves with the soft succulent. The 3 stamp colors, well, actually there's 4, because we're going to use memento for the front. So you're going to need black memento for the front. I'm also using Evening Evergreen, Blushing Bride, and I'm not sure why I have, let me look again and see what I did. I'm not using black memento. We're not using that at all. We're just using Early Espresso, Blushing Bride, and Evening Evergreen. Those are the 3 colors that we're going to be using. So let's start with the Evening Evergreen. And this is where I'm using the leaf from that Celebrate Sunflowers. I like the looks of this leaf, and I know that I'm going to use 2 of them. So I'm just going to ink this up, and I'm going to stamp this on my piece of soft succulent. I wanted to go with a darker ink instead of using the soft succulent. I wanted something darker. So you're going to stamp 2 of those. And then you're going to die cut them out with the coordinating die, and you'll end up with 2 leaves that look like that, okay? And then with Blushing Bride, on a scrap of basic white, you're going to stamp that small peony. So I'm just going to ink this up, and then I'm just going to stamp this down. And then I'm going to die cut that with a coordinating die, and I'll end up with this, okay? So I'm going to set that aside. And that leaves us with our greeting. And we're going to be doing that on the small basic white square. And you want to set it at a diagonal, because we're going to stamp up in this part here, because we want to leave room down here for our floral spray that we're going to be doing. So we're going to concentrate on staying up in here for our stamping. So I'm going to bring in the greeting, and this says, "My thoughts are with you." And I'm going to use my Early Espresso. And I'm just going to ink this up. Okay. And then I'm just going to center this towards the top here and stamp that down. There we go. So we have all of our stamping done. Now, let's start building our peonies. So I'm going to bring these in. These are our different pieces that we're going to need. Okay, so you should have 2 of each one. And you will note on each one, there's a part that is cut, and that's how we're going to put it together. So let me show you what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to do the whole process in the video. I could have showed you what I'm going to do and then left it. This one actually is going to go, yeah, it's good that way. I'm going to show you the whole process. I could have showed you basically what we're going to do and then left it and came back to put it together and show you the end result, but I thought it was important, if you've not put any of these together, that you see the process. And so I'm also going to bring in just a scrap of paper to have on the side here. So I'm going to come back with my Blushing Bride, and I'm just using a sponge dauber. And for each of these pieces, I'm going to just get some ink, and then I'm going to daub off, and then I'm just going to go along that cut line. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to if I can pick this up, then I'm just going to brush some of the Blushing Bride along the top edges, just to tint the edges. And I'm going all the way across the top, and you can do it as dark or as light as you want. But this is going to give us a little shading that's going to really make our flower pop. So I'm going to come all the way around and then a little down to the side. Don't need to do the bottom. Okay, so I've got that one done. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep doing all these and talking as I go, so it won't be as boring for you. I might speed it up a little bit on the video, but I definitely wanted you to see the process of what I'm doing. So I'm just doing the same thing. I'm just going along that cut. And you'll see why as we put this together that I'm going along the cut. And then we're just doing the same thing. We're just going to sponge daub along the top edge. This looks way more intimidating than it is. I know, especially if you're first starting out and you look at this die set, you go, oh my goodness, I don't even know what to do with this. But it's really not a hard flower to put together. Again, this is the line is a little different, but we're doing the same process. We're just sponging along that line, just like that. And then we're going along the edge. We have our ink on all of our flowers, so we're done with that. And we're ready to start putting them together. If we put them together now, they can be good and dry by the time we put them on our card. I'm gonna bring in my liquid glue, and I'm just going to put the different pieces together for one flower. And we're just doing 2 of them. Okay, so if you look at the bottoms, they all have the same shape. That's what we're gonna use to put it together, okay? So I'm going to make sure that my glue is ready. I'm gonna bring in, I have a silicone mat underneath, but I'm just gonna bring in my other one. Make sure my glue is ready to go. Okay. Now, we're gonna start with the big piece and the second largest piece. And we're gonna go ahead and slide this underneath. And I'm gonna turn this over on the back so you can see. When you push this down, they line up perfectly. See the bottoms, how they line up together? It's just really, it helps you put it together, and you know you've got it together right because they just line up. So once I get that slid in, and I know I'm okay, I'm just gonna pull it back a little bit, and I'm just putting some glue, a little bit of the liquid glue on the larger piece. You could put it on the other side of the smaller piece, but I just found this is the easier way to do it. Then I'm gonna slide that back down and line up the bottoms. And you can see our flowers starting to come together. Now I'm going to take the next size, and it's the same thing. I'm going to stick my fingers in there to give me that opening. I'm going to turn it over and put some liquid glue along that bottom. And then I'm going to push that in there. The only thing I would caution you is to make sure to hold it so you're not smearing that across the glue, because you don't want it to get in the glue until you're ready, until you have it lined up. And then just line it up and press it together. See how the bottom edges are perfectly aligned, and that's giving us our flower. So now we're down to the last one. And we're just doing the same process. We're just sticking that down in there. And then we're flipping it over. We're going to put our liquid glue. And we're going to press this down. And just line those up and hold it together. And our first flower is put together. All we got to do is add the stamen. Now, if you can see, that's held up a little, so all I have to do is take my Take Your Pick tool and go under that, and there, it's done. Now, you could bend your petals around and give them some definition. I did not do a whole lot of that, and it still turned out wonderful. So if you like having the petals bent a little, you can do that. We're going to go ahead and put together the other one before we do the stamen. There, we have both of the flowers built. So I'm going to come in with the Early Espresso stamens, and I'm going to just put some glue on the stem and just a little bit right there at the base of the stamen. And you can see that littlest one, there's still a gap, a way to pick that up. And you're just going to slide the stamen down in there. And you can put it as far or, you know, stick it up as much as you want, and then just press that glue. And I'm going to repeat the same thing with the other one. And really, for this, less is more with the glue. It doesn't take a whole lot of glue. That's more than plenty right there to hold this stamen in. I think that's what it's called. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm just going to scoot it down in there. Just like that. I'm going to press that down like that. Okay, then what I did is I came in with my Wink of Stella. I just wanted to give it a little boost, just a little glitz. So what I did, and we'll go ahead and do anything that we're going to use Wink of Stella for all at the same time. So I just went over the stamen with my Wink of Stella just to make it sparkly. Just the different points to it and the base to it. Just all over the stamen. Because I wanted that to have a little bit of sparkle to dress the flower up. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. And that'll have time to dry. And then also on the little flower, remember the one that we stamped and then die cut out of the Blushing Bride? Then I just took my Wink of Stella and just kind of went over that and just let it have some sparkle. Not trying to cover the whole thing, not trying to only put it in certain places, but just kind of giving a coating back and forth to get a little bit of sparkle on it. You could do as much or as little sparkle as you want, but that's what I did. Okay, so I'm going to set these aside, and they can just be drying while we're doing our next steps. Okay, so now we're ready to start putting things together. So let's start with this. So you'll need your little Early Espresso square and the one that we stamped. And we're just going to put some Stampin' Seal in the back. We're just creating a mat. So I'm just going around all four sides. Okay. Side looks better. Just like that. Okay, we have that piece down. And then let's look at our base. So let's start by folding it in half. And then put it so that the diagonal score goes from the bottom left up to the top right. That's how we're going to do this one. If you wanted it to go the other way, you could do your fold the other way. But this is how we're going to want to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that just so I can, that'll help me with placing my other pieces on there to be able to see the lines, okay? So let's start with our full Blushing Bride piece that's going to go on the inside. We also have the full piece of Designer Series paper that's going to go on that. So let's go ahead and put these two together. And if they're, right now it doesn't matter because that's the square, but if your pattern has a direction, you'll want to consider that, how you want that direction to go as you're putting this piece on your base. Mine, it really doesn't matter, but it just depends on the pattern that you're using. So you definitely want to at least give that a thought before you stick this down. If you're using the same one that I am, then it really doesn't matter. Okay. So I'm going to put this like this. Okay, so we've got that. Now, all of our other pieces, we're dealing with triangles, okay? So we've got the 4 Blushing Bride. Then we've got 2 of Designer Series paper and 2 of the basic white. So let's start by just putting these together. I've got our mats all put together, our triangle mats. The white ones are going on the inside. The Designer Series paper ones are going on the outside. So that's our next step, is to put these together. So it's just the same process. And I will tell you that by using this adhesive, sometimes the points don't get held down as tight as you might like them, so you can always use some of your liquid glue on the points if you should so choose. So there's that one. And this is just the same process, so I'm going to speed up this part of the video. Okay, so we've got all of our triangles put together. Card's going to go like that. So next we're going to attach this piece. So what you want to consider is that when the easel is standing up, you want your greeting to be up like that. So then if you put this down, that's how you want it to be attached. So you're going to want to put your adhesive on this side so that when you open this, the greeting sits right, okay? So you're going to put it, if you put your greeting in the upper left, you're going to put adhesive on this side. Just on the one side. Okay. So I'm going to center this up. Put that down like that. Now, it looks like I cut my squares bigger for this. This should be, the Early Espresso should be 3.5 by 3.5, and then the white should be 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, which is the size I did here. So this one's just a little bit bigger. I cut it wrong, so that's just going to look like that. Okay, it doesn't matter either way. So then now we're going to build our flowers. And what I found was easiest was to put my flowers on first, and then come in with my other elements and stick them underneath. Because the flower is the main thing that I want in a certain spot. One thing I will warn you, remember, when you're putting glue on these, on this one, you do not want to glue this down to this. You only want to glue it to this, if that makes sense. If you glue it down to this the card front, then it's not going to open right, okay? So, and I'm going to use liquid glue for this, and I'm just putting liquid glue on this one side. I'm going to glue that down, making sure, yeah, I'm good with my glue. And this one, it doesn't matter. This one, you do not have to be careful with the gluing. So I'm just going to come in here and put the glue on there. And then I'm just going to glue this just like this. Then I'm going to just, while this is still wet, I'm just going to put a little glue where I want that stem to come up. And stick that down in there. Now I'll probably have to come back. I guess I should have put it on here. I'll have to come back with some of my no stick eraser and get rid of that, or they make a powder that you can put on that to take the adhesive out. I'll show you that in a minute. Really cool stuff. So I didn't glue the top part down. You definitely could, but I liked having it look like that. So now we just have to put our leaves in. So I'm just going to put some glue on the back of the leaves. And I'm just going to tuck this one up under here. And I want to make sure that it's on the card base and not overhanging. So I like that. And then this one I'm going to put over here. So I'm going to do the same thing, just put a little bit of glue on the back and just kind of stick this in there. And then I'm going to, because this is a little lift, you know, to make sure I got the glue in the right places, let me say it that way. So I'm going to press that down. Now the next thing I need to think about is I need to think about where I want my stopper piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little flower that we stamped and put the Wink of Stella on, and I'm just going to use a couple dimensionals and put this in the center of our Early Espresso square. That's the first step. And I realized that the flower is a little bit bigger than the circle, and I was okay with that. Okay, so now I have to figure out where I want this. And I turned the flower this way, so I just got to figure out placement on that. And I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of this. And what I did is I just held this where I want it. And then I just put my, my piece that's going to stop my easel part right there and there. So when I bring it like this, and then I go like that. All we have left is to put our gems on. So I put 3 here and 3 here, and I used the larger ones. You could do it definitely however you wanted, but that's the way I did it. So I'm just going to put 1 there. And I liked these because I felt like it went with the white in the designer series paper. If you're using a different paper, you might choose a different gem for this. But this is the one I chose because I felt like it went well with the paper having the white in it. That. And we have 1 more. Just straighten those out. There we have it. The card's done. So there's the front, and then we can do the easel, and there we have it, our twisted easel card featuring the prized peonies. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you'll give these 3D peonies a try. They're not as scary as they may look. Here's the card that we started with, and here's the one that we did today. Only difference being that this square is a little larger. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you do not have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you would like to order any of the products I've used today, please visit my store at karensmith.stampinup.net, and you can order any of the sets, any of the supplies that you've seen me use today. If you are new to my channel, please hit the subscribe or a thumbs up, either one, or both, and check out my Facebook group, my Facebook page, Karen's Cards and More. If you search that, you'll find those. Like the page and join the group, and I will craft with you again soon. Hope you've enjoyed this fun fold.